Welcome back, everyone. We are jumping into a virtual tabletop conversation. If you guys watched my Pathfinder videos, which are game of the month, I think for like January, I mentioned I'm transitioning over to the Foundry virtual tabletop. And luckily, and for anybody who's followed me on the Dungeon Jedi Master side, we've got Caleb, aka Cakeman89, who's been on the Dungeon Jedi Master podcast a couple of times. For anybody who hasn't listened to those, go check those out. I'll probably throw a link in the description with those in there too. But he's joined us to talk all about the virtual tabletop for Foundry and the cool things within it. And I haven't streamed any game with Foundry yet. I've done a couple one shots, still kind of getting my hands around the system. So I'm pretty excited for this conversation to see some cool things both the community can use that I can use for my games too. Welcome Caleb to the stream.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Happy to have you join us, Foundry. And I'll say this is like a newcomer, and I'm really excited to see more of it. Foundry has so many cool resources. For anybody that's watched this stream or even my Dungeon Eye Master stuff, I've been on Roll20 person since pretty much since COVID. I started Roll20 when COVID hit, and I just haven't switched. And Foundry has so many cool resources that I've wished for with Roll20 throughout like the time I've used it. And it seems like there's a barrier to learn it, but I feel like once you get over that, it's not really too hard of a barrier. But like once you got to get used to the system, everything's easy and you can find so much cool stuff. So I'm glad we can kind of give viewers a little bit of a peek on what you can do with this system. Kind of kick it off. Actually, one thing I want to shout out to the crew too before we get into this, especially for this channel. So Caleb actually is the lead designer on the Star Wars 5e Foundry module. So we're kind of building the Star Wars 5e system into Foundry. It's a fan-led project, and he's kind of the head designer on that side. And for anybody that watches my Invasion campaign, next month when we do part 2, we're going to be switching over to Foundry for Star Wars 5e2, so you get to see a lot of it live in action. So definitely, Caleb, tell us a little bit about your experience with kind of the Foundry system in Star Wars 5e, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit more as we go.
Yeah, well, I've been on Foundry actually about the same time you've been on Roll20, the start of COVID. So I started on that because I was looking around and I wanted a system that wasn't a subscription based, and Foundry was just coming out, so it was just a one-time purchase, and then you had it for you and your players. So that was a big plus for me. Then I was using the D&D 5e system for SW5e, and I figured, well, why can't I just copy and paste some stuff in there and make it its own system? Started doing that. Some people heard about it, and that led us to the current dev team that we have today. And it is definitely a group effort. You may introduce me as the lead, but I'm just mainly the ideas guy. The heavy lifting goes to the rest of the dev team.
Well, yeah, but we're glad you got that started. I was just going through it because I've mentioned a couple times we're switching Invasion over, so I'm starting to get the new campaign set up in there. And there's just so much cool stuff that saves time, and we'll probably get into a lot of that too. But it's just for that and Pathfinder, there's just so much things in there that just I used to have to go through and input manually into Roll20. That's just in there, and for players too, that just saves both everybody a lot of time and headaches. So definitely shout out to your work on that for the Star Wars 5e side.
Yeah. So, are you wanting me to share
Oh yeah, definitely.
like one of my worlds?
Yeah, let's take a look at one of your worlds and we kind of go through some cool stuff.
Okay. So this is my Dark Nebula campaign that I run, and this is the home page. So whenever anyone logs in, I always have this active, so that this is what they come into. They can see where they are in the galaxy, what time period it is. Then they can double click on their characters and have them accessible right there from the screen. Then different places that they've been, they can click on and have the history of it right there in the journal entries and things. That's pretty. I want to say maybe intermediate, but the basic features you're talking about, they're going to be the walls, which I love walls. It's a silly thing to say, but just the fact that you don't have to worry about people's vision or fog, a fog of war, and going in and manually deleting it and everything. You can just set the vision, you can set the walls, and that is a huge feature, I think, in my opinion.
And I'll pause here for any of our virtual tabletop noobs. What exactly is a wall in those terms?
So there's actually several different walls. You have a regular wall, so that if just like it would be in real life, if a PC comes up to a wall, it cannot be gone through. They just come up against it, they can't move, and they can't see through it, right? Then with nice feature here called terrain walls, they're green, so that you know what's what. And let's just do that. For them, you can see through the first terrain wall, but you can't see through the second one. So, like if you had a tree and you wanted to make sure that they could see that it is a tree, you would encase the tree in terrain walls so that they could see what the tree is, but they wouldn't be able to see past the tree, you know. So that terrain wall, very, very awesome in my opinion. It has saved me a ton of work when you're setting things up, just so that you can see what's happening without obscuring it. Um,
Yeah, it's great. I know a lot of DMs have probably messed around, especially when they have that dungeon epic kind of dungeon crawl and want to make sure the players can see exactly what they want to see. And from what it sounds like, it's pretty simple to kind of set up on the fly, like even for like a kind of a quick map, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you see here, you got the points on the end of the walls. So you just drag that to where you want. There is a feature, snap to point. So if you want it to snap to a certain grid point instead of just anywhere, you can turn that on. Um, and then you just double click on it. You can mess with all the settings for that wall. But if you're going through and you just want to make walls and you don't want to worry about settings, you would just hold down Control, click where you want it, and there you just have a whole bunch of walls.
Nice. So that's definitely kind of one of the cool features there. One thing I'll kind of go back a little bit and ask, so you're able to kind of click on different spots on the map and bring up like points of interest for the crew. How did you build that into Foundry?
You talking about the uh, like the journal entries?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there are things called tiles. That's this setting right here, tile controls. You create a tile, and you can make it a either a video or an image. Which in this case, I did the planet of Mon Gaza, since that is where they went. And then there's a module called Monk's Active Tiles, and that module allows you to come in here and place a trigger. It says it's active, and it says anyone who clicks on it, this will activate. Then you go over to actions. It tells you what it does. You set it up that it will open a journal, Mon Gaza, for only the triggering player. So it'll there's a whole bunch of options you can do with active tiles. You can get very advanced with active tiles, even as a DM, because sometimes I have them set up off to the side. So if I want to make it so that a cascading effect happens, like a visual effect of an explosion and then the sound of a bomb, all I gotta do is click one thing and it happens.
That's pretty sweet because yeah, you can do like sounds. I think you can even do videos. You said right?
Yes, you can do videos. Yep. That's in. I mean, there are a ton of modules out there with videos already for you, and then you can upload your own.
That's pretty sweet. Uh, how have you? Oh, what's a cool story that you've used that for? What type? Or when have you used that in your campaign? I should say.
Well, um, when my crew was first, it was session 1 or 2 actually. They had boarded the vessel. They were fleeing Mon Gaza, and I had it set up to uh, turn out all the lights on the ship, make a thunk sound. A couple seconds later, it like did an emergency lighting like flicker, and then dim light came out, and then it also started the soundtrack of like a a dark kind of soundtrack where it was kind of scary to hype it up. So all of those things happened when I just clicked the one tile. And so you can actually see that on my YouTube channel if you want. It's Dark Nebula Control Session 1 or 2.
Okay, definitely. And while we're looking at that, what's the link to your YouTube? Or what's the name of your YouTube channel? I should say.
It's Cakeman89.
Oh, easy enough on that
I,
side.
I have that market cornered.
And for so the video for people watching live, I'll find that in a second and throw it in the chat. For anybody that's watching this afterwards, it'll be in the description. Definitely go check that out. I'll try to see if I can find that video in there too. Yeah, that's sweet. So those are definitely some fun features on that side. If we wanted to go even to a little bit more of a basic level, what's some of the cool things, just like kind of at like a core level? And I'm never sure. Have you ever used Roll20 before, or any of the other major virtual tabletops?
I did not. That's probably one of my downfalls is I started with Foundry and I don't have any experience with the others. So I can't tell you unbiased what is good and what is bad about the other systems. All I can tell you is what Foundry does and does well, and you have to decide the rest yourself.
I'm going to give you a couple of my favorite ones and see if we can kind of show it on screen too.
Okay.
I wish I started with Foundry to start with. I think Todd still. I'm gonna blame Todd. He used Roll20 first, and I played that. And you started using Roll20 after we went to after COVID hit. We couldn't play live anymore. Yeah, one of my favorite things, and especially if you played Roll20 for a while, especially if you game mastered it. Foundry builds in like spell radius or power radius into the power or spell itself. I don't know if you could throw up like explosion or anyone that has like a radius really or a thing really.
Let's see here. Let's target them. It did not do the visual. Sorry, hang on.
Of course.
Let's try this one. That one didn't do the visual either.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorite things, and I'm getting a Foundry stream up. I'm still getting a little bit familiar with myself before I start streaming. But next couple of weeks we do an invasion there. Yeah, it's just so cool. Like because you could throw like explosion or fireball, if you will. You can throw it down, and like everybody within a radius, you can make it deal damage, which is like sick. Especially as a game master when you have to like calculate all that damage yourself. When players start going crazy with spells.
I apologize. It is not running for me right now. I must not have the module set up yet on this
Okay.
world. But yes, you are correct. So when you target somebody and then you roll, it will do the explosion. And you heard the sound effect with the one. It obviously does sound effects too. But the way it does that is actually a module. It's called automated animations. So it'll have the visual effects of it.
Oh yeah, so I haven't played around with that. So usually, typically, when you have it set up, it kind of makes like a big like explosion effect, like it makes like a visual effect on there too, outside of just
Yes.
like the radius.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I know why it's not doing this. On the home screen, this is in parsecs to be able to do parsecs in the map. Give me 1 second. Let me change the map, and that will fix uh, that problem.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us, Chris. And definitely, I agree with you. It does. It takes a little bit of work to set up, but it is worth it. And one of the biggest things, we'll probably show a little bit of this too. But I think for like players building characters, unless you like bought like a whole bunch of the Roll20 stuff, it takes a lot. Especially if you're playing Star Wars 5e or Pathfinder, it takes a lot for players to go through and build it. But with Foundry, you can just kind of go in and just throw your sheet up and search for feats, heritages, whatever species, whatever you're using, you just drag and drop it over, and it'll like automatically set your sheet up appropriately, which is sick to me.
Yeah, that is definitely a feature that I do want to show if we can.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So there is explosion.
Sweet.
So you can, when you place the template, you can see where you're placing it to make sure that you're targeting what you want. Once you click it on there, it lays it down, and it'll stay there. Um, it'll stay there until you delete it or the GM deletes it. And I targeted way too much apparently. So uh,
Definitely. It's one of my favorite features. I've used it for the one shots I've run with the system, and it's nice because you can make all the creatures within that radius do a saving throw, which
right.
saves you the game master, especially because players always love finding a huge group of people to throw explosion or something big into. This is true, like for Star Wars 5e, for Pathfinder 2e. Those are the two systems I've played on. I haven't really played anything outside of those two, but I assume for traditional 5e and most of the other big systems too, that's kind of a built-in feature.
Yes, it is built into the main system for sure. Um, as you were talking about, it makes them do a saving throw. The module that I use for that is Monk's Token Bar, and so it throws it up in the chat. So all they got to do is click this D20, and then it'll tell them if they've saved or failed, which is nice.
Nice. And we'll kind of get to that later, but like if you had to, but one of the cool things with Foundry, and I know you've got like a huge list of them too, but there's a lot of cool modules that you can do to kind of cater your experience or kind of get what you'd like extra on top of the system. Actually, let's take a look at that now. So, what are some of your favorite? Oh, you got a lot of modules. Is that 189?
So I just want to preface this by saying I run 189 modules on any given world. Now that does mean that some of them conflict with each other, so you gotta be careful um, when you use them and things. But they all have a lot of good features that you can just implement in. And since we are like an offshoot of D&D 5e, we try to keep our system's core the same as theirs. That way, when a module comes out or updates, we're kind of in line with it, and it can be used. There are a few that we've had to separate and do ourselves. Like token action HUD is one of them, where you see this little red
Mhm.
bar right here. Whenever you click on your character, that'll show up, show you what's in your inventory and things like that. Um, that module we actually had to split off so that it will work with our system. We're still working out the bugs on it, but it should be out here pretty soon.
And I'll bring up one of my favorite mods you told me about. Was one of my biggest headaches switching from Roll 20 to Foundry. It's this one mod solved it. What's it called? The drag and drop or the drag mod. Basically, it lets you the mod that you told me that lets you like bring stuff from like a folder or whatever you have it and just
Oh,
plop it right into the screen.
yeah, yeah. I think it's DF droppables or something like that.
Something like, and I'll look at my sister because you or look back at our messages because I know you told me about that one, and it made life so much easier. When that's one of the things I like with Roll20 is you can just go and throw if you had a token or whatever it is, just throw it on the screen and have it work. This mod kind of brings that functionality back into Foundry as well.
Yeah. So I mean, you can with anything individually, you can just
Mhm.
drag it out and it can come out. If you want to bring it out hidden, you hold down Alt and you drag it out. It comes out hidden. Um, and then with that module that you're talking about, you can grab a whole folder and pull it out, and it'll throw all of them in there.
Oh, so I think we're talking about two different ones. I didn't know about that one.
Oh, okay.
So this one you can kind of throw a whole. That's good to know because I usually make my encounters in folders, so that's easier to work as well. The
Yeah.
one I was talking about is if you had like a folder on your PC, like a regular like Windows folder. If you had like an image in there and you wanted to like throw it onto the Foundry virtual tabletop.
Okay. Yes, I'm drawing a blank on the name of that module, to be
I
honest.
think it's drag. Let me open my Foundry real quick. I only have like 20 mods, so
Yeah, it's a lot easier for you to find it.
So one thing, and I know you said that sometimes the mods will conflict. Does having like a lot of mod, or does it matter how many mods you have active when it comes to kind of the system running smoothly, or kind of anything along those sides?
Uh, yeah, I would say. when you have a lot of mechanics running at the same time, it's gonna have a drag, especially on your if you have a potato, it's gonna have a drag on it. But I typically out of the 189 that I do, I usually have right around 100 active at a time.
Okay.
And all of my players, I have a player that's using a Chromebook, and they're able to run it. So it you know the it, I wouldn't say I would run a whole 189 at the same time, but it does have an impact when you start getting up over 100.
Definitely, and actually, that's kind of a good question I'll ask, especially with the Chromebook, because I know some of my players when we've done the one shots. Is there anything you'd recommend if like players do have like any load issues or anything like that for either the player or the one that's hosting the world to do?
Uh, yes. So you can download a mod to do this for your player or the player if they can get into this point where they can bring up the settings and configure settings.
Mhm.
You can bring this down. So you would want to scroll down here to performance mode
Okay.
and change it. Change it to what you think your PC is capable of. The Chromebook user that I have has it on low and his maximum frame rate all the way down to 10, so
Okay.
that he can run smooth. Because his internet isn't the best either, so that helps out.
That'll be useful. That came up just yesterday or Thursday now when I was doing a Pathfinder one shot with one of my players. He had to turn off his dice because it was giving him a little because we had the 3D dice so nice, which is another really
Dice
cool
so
mod.
nice.
Yeah, he had to turn that off because it was just slowing his internet down. So I have
I
to
will
tell him
say
about that
that
performance
one.
mode.
Yeah, do that, and then Dice so nice. I think my settings on that, I have it doing it fast. Like I have it doing it 3 times fast for everybody. That way, it doesn't take up a whole bunch of resources on the PC.
Sweet. I have to mention that to him on that one as well. And shout outs to Todd. It's actually the drag upload mod where you can just kind of drag it from your computer and it'll upload right to Foundry. And it usually has a tile, but you can do like other things too, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely some cool ones that help out and make life quite a bit easier for everybody along. So I'm definitely happy to hear though that there's a way for people that may not have the newest PC because I was a little worried after last session. One of my long term players was speaking of slowness because it's for anybody that watches. He's been on this channel quite a bit, but definitely Dungeon Jedi Masters. It's Burger. He's played in Invasion, hunted a lot of my other one shots too. He's got a little bit of an older PC, so I was worried that if it was slow form and we were using Discord, that if we used Ninja, which I use for streaming, it would just kill his PC. So glad we can kind of turn that down a bit.
For sure.
Sweet. So what are the so let's kind of go through like some of the other cool features with Foundry. One of the things I think people will like, and we touched on this a little bit too, is just kind of showing how like the character sheets work. Because this is one of my favorite things, especially for complex. Star Wars 5e can be considered complex too, but Pathfinder, Star Wars 5e, where there's a lot that goes into building a PC. I think Foundry does a great job of just making it so they don't do a bunch of typing or configuring. Like the system will help it like build yourself out.
Yes. So I will say, for our system, I should have led with this, and I apologize. For our system, the absolute essential module that you must have is Dynamic Active Effects by T. Posney. Um, that module makes it so that when you are building your character, the changes are being added into the effects portion of the character sheet. So if we want to go through and make a character just to show
Yeah.
how that works, okay. What do you got for me?
All right. Let's go. Let's go with my favorite Star Wars species. Let's throw a Barabella in. For anybody who doesn't know, they're just giant lizards with a funny, interesting speaking pattern. I'll say.
Yes. Um, I do like. I played a bear ball one time, and I do love it. You take. Who's your favorite bear ball?
Saba Sabatine.
I knew it. I knew you were gonna say that.
Hands down, probably my favorite Jedi. Oh, yeah, tied with Mace Windu for my favorite Jedi. I love that. She's just hilarious. Read for anybody who hasn't heard of her. Read New Jedi Order and then Legacy, like all like the stuff after. They're pretty much a sequel trilogy for the Legends universe, and it's great. It's great.
She is great. So what I should explain, if you want to add things, you go in here to the compendium section, and you can either search the compendiums for species and open that, and then search for barebow, and then you would just drag and drop onto the character sheet. It would go in there. There is a module called Quick Insert, which is what I'm using. So you would hold down Control, hit space, and then you can search all of the compendiums at the same time for that item.
Oh, that's really cool. So let me go. So that was called Quick Insert, and you hit Control what?
Control space bar.
Control space bar. Okay, I'm gonna have to steal that one. Because that's be nice for not having to keep going back to the compendium on the sheet each time.
Yeah, it's so much faster. So we got Barebow, and what class do we want?
Let's keep a Barebow thing. Or should we go Slava Sabati? Let's go Guardian. That fits her.
Guardian. Go level 4.
And one of the cool things for anybody who's just like not paying super attention, but you see it added in like the hit points too. So you're starting hit points for the class. So for players, especially, I think one of the best things for Foundry is it's great for players that are new to a system because it does a lot of the I won't say thinking, automates a lot of the processes for making a new class because you can just go in, drag over what you need, and it does a lot of the back end pieces. For new players, they'll still read the book, but like it does aid and lend a helping hand, I'll say.
Yes, this is actually something that came out in version 10 of Foundry. We didn't have it before this. So it's called Advancement. And we built it into all of the classes and the archetypes so that whenever you gain a level, it tells you what you get. You can read it, and then it automatically adds it to the character sheet.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's all of everything that you would get at level 4. The hit points, if you would, we took the average on them, so it just automatically added it up. We didn't do any ability scores, so if you had more of a constitution, it would automatically include that in that calculation. So you don't have to mess with hit points if you're doing all of your rolls here on Foundry. I do know a couple of DMs that switch between Discord and Foundry, even for like the level up rolls for the hit points. So if you do that, you will have to go in here and manually fix that.
And speaking of Star Wars 5, I think we picked one too, but I know I'm bringing Invasion over, and one of which
No sharing then.
welcome back, everyone. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulties there. My OBS decided to crash on me partway through. But yeah, so we're going to be bringing back up the game worlds. Definitely thank anybody for just jumping back in after we got the system up again. But yeah, throw in any questions you guys have for the Foundry system or things they can do, or even shout out some of your favorite features on that side as well. We'd love to see them there too. Yeah, so and one of the things, and I know it kind of glitched out as we were going through the character sheets. I'm not sure where everybody got cut off, but there's so many cool things that the character sheet can do on that side. So I hope you guys get to see us bringing over the species, the class, going through the different level up features, and talk about the fighting styles there, because it's just really one of those things I think saves players a lot of time, and especially a lot of, I won't say guesswork, but kind of it saves them some book work, I'll say. Uh, so they don't have to go through and find every little piece. They look for the feature they want, bring it in, and it kind of helps automate the sheet to do what they need to.
Okay. So, yeah, I think this will work now. And I don't mind going back to the character sheet to finish that out too.
Okay,
But I was just
sounds good.
trying to show the, I'm going to try to show the targeting thing again.
And I think that we were glitching at that point. But yeah, one of the things game masters you'll love, players too, even. But you can target, like when you you make an attack, you can target. And I think Cakeman has it, but I usually don't have it for mine. You can actually make animations as well. So I think like Todd had one a while back where you could like shoot like if somebody shot a blaster, you'd see like a little blaster bolt fly through and like crazy stuff like that when you make attacks.
May I share my screen?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. So this is actually Tressa Vol, the one shot that I did. That's from your Dungeon Jedi Masters channel. And Sparky's turn. So Sparky would target. Then you got to make sure you switch back over. Oh, man, I hate it when players don't reload stuff.
And that's another cool feature it can do too. It keeps track of your ammo with shots and all that. I know some people don't like to do some of the more nitty gritty like management campaigns, but Foundry kind of makes it a little easier on that side too.
Okay, let's try this again. All right, we're ready. So right there is what you're talking about. We target them, and then over here at the bottom of the chat, it says it misses the person.
Nice.
And I just threw in General Grievous just because he was easy to just grab and throw in there. But they would be able to know that they missed, and you can also like say this was a surprise, like they didn't know who this person was. Uh, by appearances, they should know who it was, but say they didn't. You can actually mask that for them so that it just says unknown creature. So they
Oh,
would still be able to see the token and have your description as the GM, but they wouldn't be able to see the name of whatever the NPC is that they're fighting.
that's pretty sweet. Uh, And one of the cool things, let's see if we can do another shot and see if it'll hit. Because one of the things I think game masters will love on this side is they do hit. You could roll. Actually, I don't even think you have to hit. You like roll damage, and you could just apply it right to the token without having to like go in and do math yourself, or even go in and just do the minusing. You can just have it work right away, which is sick to me.
Right. So there are two ways to do it. One module actually has buttons here, so that when you hover over the damage, it has buttons, just like little icons, and you can click those. Or core is you can right click on that and then click apply damage, and it will take it right out of their hit points.
It's definitely one of my favorite things. Like that, the target piece and the radius for spells and powers were two of my favorite things when kind of coming over to Foundry, because it's one of those things with the target piece is trying to remember all the damage where you're trying to keep combat moving, and for so many games when we've got like a radius. like it just gets slow down gameplay when everybody tries to like figure it out in roll 20 and try to drag something over and count squares and all of that craziness. And this just completely removes that as a barrier, which I'm surprised roll 20 doesn't have it, but I love Foundry for having it.
Yeah.
This is one thing I probably should have asked you this from the start. But how with Foundry, because one of the big differences between Foundry and Roll20, as you mentioned, that it's typically, I mean, it's a flat fee. You just buy like the system, which I think is like I bought it for anybody that wants a really good deal when you buy it. Black Friday, they usually do like half price. That's when I bought mine. How much is it usually? Like $80?
50.
50. Okay. So yeah, great deal there. But one of the big differences with kind of buying it no subscription fee is you either have to host it yourself or use a hosting service. How do you usually handle your games with it?
There is a Oracle Cloud service that is completely free,
Oh, okay.
and so I have it set up using that. You can find the link in the SW5E Foundry Discord. Um, sorry, Foundry Dev Discord. That's what it is. But if you just search Oracle, you'll find a link to it, and it has a step-by-step instructions to walk you through how to host it. Once you do that, it's free forever, and you can put it. I think it's up to like 12 gigs of RAM and things like that. So the server itself will have absolutely no issues. The only issues will come if your players have bad internet or a potato.
Okay. That's pretty sweet. So, for people that are watching it live, unfortunately, they won't have it in this one, but in the video, or once we get on the video on demand, I'll throw a link to Oracle in the description, so anybody can go take a look at that. I've I was with the lazy man just paid some money for Forge as well, which Forge, especially if you're coming from Roll20 and have the funds and are okay spending a little bit of money too, it functions very similar to that, where you can kind of send out links to different game worlds you're running, especially if you play a lot of different games. That's helped me too. But I'm gonna have to check out Oracle. It'll save me like forgot whatever the storyteller package on for Forge is. It'll save me that.
I've never actually used it, but yeah, I know it's a monthly subscription. But yeah, it's free, and I think Todd set his up like a week or two ago.
Okay.
He was messaging me about it. So yeah, it's definitely the way to go. Even from having a decent server resource, it's really good.
Nice.
Um, I used to have it on AWS, but AWS is only free for a year, I think, and then they start charging you, and it was a outrageous amount that I was getting charged. So that is how I do it. I know you can do it from your PC itself. You don't need a server or anything like that. But that again, that's going to depend on your internet connection, your PC, and if it can handle it.
Yeah, I did my first one shot when I bought it, like bought Foundry probably like 2 years ago, or probably or about 3 years ago, probably right after Black Friday hit, and I bought it and I used it or read it off my PC. Unfortunately, my dog, like my dog, I've got two big dogs. I saw them on the stream one day, but my dogs ran through and knocked the router out, and it just crashed everybody out of the game. Usually, it would crash me out of the game, but I can just reboot and get back on. But if you're using the hosting without having like Oracle or Forge or something like that, it's completely your computer hosting. And if you get knocked off or you're not on to for people to build character sheets or whatever it may be, like you always have to be in the system for it. So I definitely recommend using Oracle, Forge, whatever it may be, just have a hosting service to get that off of your hands, even if you have a nice PC. Unless you have like a
Absolutely.
dedicated server PC, which some people do. One of my
Yeah,
friends says that.
master PC race going on there.
Yeah, he's good. He's definitely a PC gamer. Whenever he gets his one of his PCs ages out, he basically makes it his new server PC. So he can do whatever he needs to.
Nice. Okay, so back to going to the character sheet and going through that. We added the Guardian class, went through all of the advancements. The nice thing is when you click on the class, It does give you the description. Um, you're able to go in here and edit things if you want to customize it, because I know there are some homebrews out there that don't use classes specifically the way the SW5E runs it, so they can go in here and change some things. Um, it has the archetypes, so if you don't want to do quick insert for the archetypes, you can just come here and drag and drop them into the character sheet from the class. Um, then you've got the invocation. So again, if you didn't want to search for it, it's all right here. And then the advancement is where you see what you're going to get at what level. So if you wanted to try to plan it out, you can go through here and see what you're going to get.
Nice.
As the game master, you can also add things if you want. Like if you wanted to grant an item at a specific level or a scale value, like scale value would be force empowered strikes. That's a scale value. It changes at certain levels. So if you wanted to do that, you could go in and add that for any of the characters in your game.
Nice.
So what archetype is Saba?
Oh, that's a good question. I would guess Form 7. Either Form 5 or 7 might be my guess. Let's go with what's the Gojuyo form for that one.
Okay. So when I drag and dropped it, it knows that since you're at level 4, you're going to get these from the archetype. Once you hit complete, it'll throw them in there at the bottom.
Nice.
So you'll see those. Powers are very. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go show the power piece. Yeah.
So powers we originally had as each like a tab up here. It's each
Mhm.
individual tab. It got pretty cluttered pretty quickly because of force casting, tech casting, and then all of a sudden superiority was a separate thing. So now it's all under power books. If you have force powers, they're under force casting, tech under tech casting, and superiority die under superiority. If you have the token action HUD, they will show up here when you have it selected. When you have the character selected, they will show up there, and you'll be able to use them. But if you're looking for it just on the character sheet, it's under power books.
Perfect. And one cool thing, and I think we can do this both for powers and show kind of powers as well as inventory. But like you can just kind of go in and drag the power you want over for your PC, as well as like Saba's using a Great Saber. You just throw that in versus because my players have spent a lot of time on Roll20, where they have to go through, especially for Star Wars 5e, where a lot of it isn't able to be compendium and go through and actually like manually enter it in. So I know they're probably going to be pretty stoked when we convert Invasion over to just be able to like drag and drop.
Yeah, that. I mean, some of us had to manually enter it in for this system, but we only had to do it
True.
once. But yeah, you can just go under force powers in the compendium, and you can drag and drop, and there it is, and it will use your character's abilities, ability scores, and everything to calculate the DCs and the to hit um, piece of it. So all you got to do is drag and drop, and that's it.
That's definitely been one of my favorite features. Just kind of playing around with it myself, even like for build. And one of the really cool things too, as well, especially if you're a Star Wars 5e player, or even if you're Pathfinder too, because the Pathfinder rules are free, kind of like Star Wars 5e, so they're all in there. But the monsters are built into the system, and you can just bring. Like I think you guys have all of Fisto's codex and all the ones that are on the website, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
under monsters, you
Mhm.
have that scum and villainy.
So,
Um,
yeah.
it is not 2.0 yet because 2.0 isn't on the website. So we have like we're skimming the website's API to pull this information for these. So right now they're just what is on the website. Once it moves over to 2.0, then we'll get them in here. But at the moment, this is what we got. And then Fisto's Codex is in there as well. And I don't know how up to date it is because I think he has updated it since, but it's in there for now.
Let's
The way it
see
was.
if this one's in there. Try Sith Warrior. Nice. That's what I made. I probably should update it sometime, but this was made pre-fighting styles update. Yeah, so it's in the Fistos Codex. Especially if you played a lot of Star Wars 5e on Roll20, you'll know that it's a lot of inputting, and that you can just kind of bring it right over and tweak it however you may. Oh, this is something I haven't noticed before. What's that sound like? Do they have like a sound associated with them too?
Oh, this here, that is a
Yeah,
module. And as a GM, you can have a sound associated with it. You can have two purposes for it. You can have it so that you can play it for the characters. That's a different one. This right here is so that you remind yourself what the person sounds like.
that's really cool. That
Yeah. So if
because
you did a specific voice for a specific NPC, you can make sure you record that, put that in there, and then when you go to that NPC, if you don't remember what you did, you can just come in here and play it for yourself real quick.
that is sick because there's been so many NPCs. I've forgotten what voice I've used before. Just use a different one and hope the players don't notice. What's the name of that module? That's a cool one. Or if you know
Can I get back
offhand.
to you on that?
No, no worries. Yeah, no worries.
That's one I'm gonna have to track down because that was one of the ones I put in like pretty close to the beginning.
Okay. So that's actually another good question. So how do you usually find new modules that you're going to be using?
I actually peruse the Foundry website. I can spell properly. There's a section on here under systems and modules, and then add-on modules. They have
Okay.
2063, right? Every time a module is updated, it goes to the top, so you'll see it more than once. But typically, I just go through here and check on like, oh, this one, this is new. What's this? Monk sound enhancements. It has playlist enhancements, and I just go through it and read it. So that's how I keep up on modules um, to see what might be out there. This one is a great one, item piles.
Okay.
I haven't used it in a while myself, but you can turn a NPC into a player character into an item pile where you click on it and um, it drops items.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah, I know that several of the dev team uses this. You can turn it into a merchant as well, so that they can buy and sell items, and then they can also trade with each other. It enables a feature where a player can trade an item with a player. It'll automatically take it out of their inventory and put it in the other player's inventory, which saves time. To be honest, as the GM, you don't have to go in and do that.
Yeah, I like that, especially if you, because especially when you do like a dungeon or something like that, where you're just handing out loot. This way, they can just go in and give it themselves, trade with people without having to go through and click in the screen. So I like that.
Yes, a very, very good mod. But yeah, there's the whole section on mods, and if it sounds like something that you would want, you just read it and then download it. More than likely, if it works with the ND5e, it's going to work with our system.
Sweet. Perfect. Well, let me see. Because we kind of went through a little bit. Oh, one thing. This is be my only tip because this is something that confused me for quite a bit with Foundry until I realized I was just doing it wrong. Could you go to the map screens? Because this is what that irritated the hell out of me for weeks until I realized I was just not reading something.
Scenes?
Scenes. Yeah, scenes.
Okay.
Because one thing when you're placing down a new scene, if you don't get rid of the map padding, you'll see white squares around it. And that
Yes.
irritated the hell out of me. I'm like, how do I get rid of this? Like, I'm trying to make the map bigger to get
Okay.
rid of it. But
Yeah. So you're talking about this area right here.
Oh, so
That
yeah, so
is,
yours is like clear. See, mine always had like those white squares. I hate. Uh, there, you probably have like a set, or probably if we go to the settings and see what you have on there,
yeah.
just to show the crew.
So let's see here. I believe it's under grid. Yeah, padding percentage is at 0.1. I believe it's set at uh, 0.25 normally or something like that. Um, and then the background color should change that. Yeah. So I'm not sure why were showing up white, but that's my padding. And then what I would do is I would just go in and I would wall off the edges of the map. That way they can't see past it. They can't go past the edge of the map. But it's nice for me because, like, right over here, I have one of my active tiles that I was ready to click on to have something happen here. So the players would have a visual and a sound effect. So it enables me to be able to put this here. They don't have to see that writing. They don't have to see the blank tile, which are all things that you could make invisible, sure, but this padding enables me so I don't have to do that.
That's pretty cool. So I've just been putting it down to 0, so I didn't have to see the white around it. But yeah, I hadn't think about putting like different tiles or sequences. So for Invasion Part 2, you may see some cool stuff depending on how much time I put into it. But one
Oh
thing
yeah.
I'll ask you there too. How much time do you? Because I know you probably have experience in it, but how much time do you like put into like kind of making some of these sound effects and visual effects, even with kind of your expertise in the system?
Uh, well, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm doing a one shot, I don't put a whole lot into it.
Mhm.
But if it's my campaign, I'm gonna spend some time on that. You know, um, with this, I did the most I spent time on, which was funny, was the briefing room because I wanted to be able to do like uh, this visual here and to take it away. So
So,
it flickers on the hollow map and then it flickers it away um, when it
oh,
turns
that's
off.
cool.
So it took a little bit because if I go into the tile itself, you can see the triggers that are involved. There's a decent amount of triggers.
Yeah,
So you gotta
Invasion
you
team, if
gotta
you're watching, don't expect any of this.
Now, I do recommend if you're going to use a module, this helped me a lot. If you're going to use a module, look on YouTube to see if there is any tutorials for that module. This is Monk's Active Tiles. There is like 2 or 3 tutorials on it from different people, and they explain how to use it very well. So it will save you time of having to sit here and fiddle and try and figure it out yourself. So utilize that resource of YouTube is definitely one thing that I would recommend. Even for Foundry itself, um, there are several tutorials that are just the basic, like here's how you do a wall, or here's how you do a drawing, or anything like that, lighting in the space. So using YouTube to look that up is definitely a good thing.
Definitely. And one thing I'll kind of ask you, I've seen it, a lot of the modules you use seem to be from Monks. Is Monks kind of like a trusted brand, you'd say, for kind of the Foundry modules?
Oh yeah, yeah. Anything from T. Posney and Monk, Iron Monk, I wholeheartedly recommend. I use MIDI QOL from T. Posney, and that automation, you've seen it in the chat when I would, uh, roll something. That is a lot of that is from that module, and then Monks has some great modules. Let me bring them all up here. So active tile triggers is the one we were just talking about, where you can throw down a tile and have it trigger to do something. If somebody steps on it, it'll trigger. If they click on it, it'll trigger. You can set it up to do whatever you want.
Oh, so even trigger
Uh,
if you like somebody's token goes over it too?
yeah,
That's sweet. Okay.
yep. Like you don't even have to ask them to do a dexterity saving throw. They will walk over it. The game will pause, and then it'll ask them for a dexterity saving throw.
Perfect.
And then you can get pretty advanced and say if they save, then this happens. Or if they fail, there's an explosion. and a visual explosion where it shows and makes a sound as well. So it can get pretty advanced with that. Uh, Chat timer. I don't use that a lot, to be honest, but it is kind of nifty. Combat details. That is something I believe was parted out. Yeah, it allows combat to run smoother. So there's some. That's not what I wanted. Down to it. Oh, maybe this is the one that he parted out. I'm not sure. It's not. Okay. So these are different settings for combat itself. Targets clear after turn. When it comes back to that turn, they will remember the targets, so they won't have to retarget.
Oh, that's
It's
cool.
different. Yeah, so it's different settings like that to make combat easier and faster. Um, Combat marker. That's the spinny thing under them. Common display. I use this for OBS. The common display, you have a different user that is set up. The OBS logs into that user, and that user mirrors the GM screen. So so that you log into OBS as that user, and then it just follows the GM screen all around.
Okay. I
Enhanced.
haven't played around my stream setup for Foundry at all. I'll have to take a look at that one.
It's a nice one. I enjoy it a lot. It makes things really easy. I will say, when you're doing it, you do want to make sure you're looking at your OBS to make sure that it's positioned correctly. Otherwise, you might have to like drag it to
Yeah.
where you're at sometimes. The enhanced journal, I didn't get to journal entries, but the enhanced journal entries, create journal entry, new, and the type. So any of these right here from Adventure Book are base Foundry journal entries. They're going to be your basic text editor. Single sheet, this is all from Monk's enhanced journals. So you can have loot on one, you can have an organization, person, a shop is a favorite for everyone. So you can have a shop, and let's see here. Great. Boom. Yes. Now there's an item in the shop, and they can come in and they can check items and play it. You have the description of the shop, relationship to any other points of interest, notes for you as the GM for this shop. So the enhanced journals enable a lot of functionality that's not there in base Foundry. Um, I highly recommend this one. I use it for shops myself. So
Okay.
Player settings. This is the one that allows the GM to change the settings for the players and sync settings. Token bar. So token bar is this guy here at the bottom. And let's go back to this. So when you're on a scene where you've got your PCs out, you can have them here. If you click on them, it'll actually let's get rid of that. It'll take you to where they are and highlight them.
Okay, that's
So you
pretty
don't have
cool.
to you don't have to search. Gives you you can edit these too if you wanted more than just their AC and their passive perception. You
Mhm.
can add it, or you could take those away if you don't necessarily want them. If you didn't want to pause the game and you didn't want them to move, you could do no movement and it won't allow them to move. And this is combat. So once you go into combat, it changes it to you can only move during your turn. It kind of keeps things orderly sometimes.
So if you click on that combat, would it put all of the like tokens on the map into combat mode?
It won't. No.
Okay.
It's combat. It's only movement for combat is what
Mhm.
it's saying. If you wanted to do that, you could just select them all and
So I've been using Control All, and then in the combat thing. I wasn't
yeah.
sure if there's a little mod that would do that easy.
If there is one, I'm not using it. I'm not sure. Then you can do a contested roll between two players if you wanted. Right here. Do we want to do skill or ability check and then request, and it'll send a chat box to them asking them to roll, and it'll tell who wins.
I do like the requested roles with Foundry because you can just like send it right to the person. Sometimes players may not always be paying right as much attention as you'd like, and this way they'll get a pop up, get a little bit into the game, and roll whatever you need them to do.
Yeah.
Also, too, for anybody that plays Pathfinder, there's a way I think Control Click will let them do a roll. They can roll it, but they won't get to see whatever the result is. So they can do a secret roll for you if you're doing Perception, Stealth, or any of those secret rolls that come up. They can just hit Control and click, and they can roll it themselves, but they won't see it until you show it back to them, which is nice.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that feature.
That's one of the things I was looking for because with Pathfinder, there's a lot of like secret roles where just the GM nails it with like knowledge rolls and things like that. And with Roll20, you really there's no way to do it. But with this, you just control click and it rolls it secretly.
Okay. I do know that over here above the chat, you've got private GM roll, and then you've got a blind GM roll, and self roll. So self roll, you're only going to see it yourself. Blind GM, that's what you were talking about, where they don't see it but you do. And then the private GM roll, you both see it, the player and the GM, and then the other one is public. So
Nice.
but we don't have a fancy shortcut like Pathfinder does.
Oh, is that just a Pathfinder thing?
Yeah, it must be. I've never used it before. Either I didn't know about it, or I've never used it before.
What they all say with the viewers to each of the different game modules, like they do play differently. So I wasn't sure if that was like a Foundry thing or like a Pathfinder thing, which probably just sounds like it's just a Pathfinder 2e thing.
Yeah, they also have a really cool compendium feature that I'm looking to steal. I think it's Pathfinder's, where it's got the compendium is searchable, like filter, like you can filter it.
They do actually, yeah. I was playing about that the other day. You can go through and all the monsters are free, so you can go through and filter by level, type of monster, rarity, and all that, or rarity for items and all that, and kind of get exactly what you're looking for without having to go to the website or anything like that.
We are looking to steal that very shortly.
That'd be sick. Anything that can stop me from having to do multiple websites or just kind of stay within the virtual tabletop, definitely gets a plus in my book.
Yeah, that's the end goal of our system. We want you to be able to do everything from here. Not to take you away from the website or anything, sw5e.com, definitely a good resource. But if you do everything here, it saves a little bit of time and a little bit of stress too.
100%.
And then with all of the monks, those are all in my book. Like I have them on all of my worlds because of how useful they are. Let me say, do you deal with conditions a lot?
Yeah, definitely.
So combat utility belt is a mod that allows you to have a condition lab, and when you say put that condition on a player, it will automatically. You can set it so that it automatically adds. So if you give somebody half cover condition, it automatically will add 3 to their AC.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah. So definitely combat utility belt for the condition lab. Very important. Now you don't have to go through and set up all the conditions yourself, because if you look on the SW Foundry Dev Discord, you will have the file, and you can just go in and import right up here and import the file. It'll bring all of these in: charmed, blinded, deafened, disease. If you're not a fan of like automating it, you don't have to. You can go in and delete the effects if you want. but it is nice to have the automation already there so that nobody forgets that they have disadvantage.
Definitely, because a lot of times, especially if you've got because conditions stacking up, both players and game masters can forget who has what.
Exactly. So there's that one, and then autocomplete inline properties. If you're going to be doing a lot of uh, effects for a player, I don't think I actually got to that section when we were doing the character sheet. So let me go back to Saba. The only effect she has right now is the effects from the Barabel species. If you go in here, it will actually show us what effects she gets from that. So it's right here. It's overriding this field to Barabel. Make sure that she's medium and make sure that they have 30 feet of movement. Dark vision is set to 60. Proficiency and survival. So these are everything that's in effect. If you go and you try to change these things without changing the effect, it will not let you. It
Okay,
says it's being modified. So if it's being modified, you're coming to this tab, the effects tab, to see what's modifying it. And if you need to modify it from there, you can certainly do that. You can go in here and change it to you know 50 or whatever you want to do. Submit change. Now she's got 50 feet of movement.
sweet.
So if you are going to be looking for a lot of effects, this is going to be the attribute keys. Autocomplete inline properties gives you these keys. You can start typing them out, and it automatically um, starts going through it, like right here. This is autocomplete, so it'll search it for you. In other words, DF curvy walls.
What's that
So
do?
have you ever had a round building before?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Have you ever tried to do walls on a round building?
So I haven't done the walls yet myself in the game, so uh, definitely this will hopefully help with that.
Yes, for sure. Let's see here. Go ahead and refresh because I didn't have it on for some reason. So it gives these nifty buttons here. If you're going to do a complete circle, you would just drag it out. You can add more points in order for it to be a little smoother, or less points if you don't. And then once you get to where you are, you just click the check mark, and there's your walls.
Sweet.
So instead of you trying to click every tile all the way around, you can just do it. You also have this if you want to do weird curves. You got it. So that
Nice.
module makes curvy walls very easy. And
Perfect.
then I
Well,
do
as
want to
we're
mention.
oh, go ahead.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, so uh, as we're kind of getting closer to the end, though, with has there any other major modules you'd mentioned on the side?
Quick insert. Tokenizer I use for function, definitely. Tokenizer makes it so that, let's bring up Saba again. When you click here to add, you can add the avatar and then the token over here.
Okay.
And you can actually pull it from URLs and things like that. So Tokenizer is a great resource in my opinion. And then for fun modules, automated animations, 100%, so that you can have the blaster bolts flying and the lightsaber slashing and everything going on there. Um, Dice are nice, you already mentioned. So I do like being able to see the dice, even though I'm not physically rolling it. But one day, once Pixels is done with their
Yeah.
setup, I'll be
Back
able to
that
do
one
that.
too. I bet. So one day we'll have that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think about 2 years we'll get it.
Yeah.
Um, but the health estimate, I don't know. Do you describe as a GM, do you describe how someone looks?
Yeah, I usually
Um,
just use like bloodied and like the old like 3-5 or 4E ones for that. So bloodied, and I say rough for a quarter HP usually. Yeah.
okay. So you can actually set up health estimate so that if it's at a certain percentage, it'll say
Mhm.
something when you hover over them. So a player
Oh,
could hover over and it'll say that person is badly injured.
that'd be nice.
It does take away from some GMs I know that want to be very descriptive, so you don't have to have it if you don't want it. But it is nice for a player to be like, okay, well, what does this guy look like to
Yeah, I mean,
decide,
because I usually use the bloodied and rough ones. So I can just have it say bloodied, and if they're 50% and rough, if they're 25. So save me some time in there and the player some time as well.
right? Small time and simple calendar. Small time is this module right here. It gives everybody what time it is. You advance it as the GM. And then simple calendar. I don't have active on this because it was a one shot, but that is exactly what it sounds like. It's a Star Wars. You can set it up so it's a Star Wars calendar, and then it tells on what days you can put notes in there on what happened. Everybody can go back and look at it.
I downloaded that one. I'm gonna have to download it for Star Wars 5e or enable that module for my Star Wars 5e world too. But I did that for my little homebrew world. It's nice because especially for game masters, it can be hard to keep track of like what day everything is with everything else is going on, and you can just pick a day, start a campaign, and just keep advancing it as you go along.
Yeah, it does help when trying to remember things. Like how long have we been here? Give me a second. Token flip. Okay, I can't showcase this one, but I love this one because my players love to do tokens off of Hero Forge.
Mhm.
So they do different stances, and then they'll have like 4 or 5 different stances. And token flip allows you to just with the click of a button flip that token to a different stance. So they'll have a normal stance, and then they'll have a combat stance. I got a player that has a sleeping stance, so that when he goes to sleep, it's just him laying on the floor.
That's cool
so
though. That's cool.
so I definitely like that one. And then torch saves a lot of time because you don't have to go in there and manually change like, oh, it's 20 feet of dim light and or 20 feet of bright light, 40 feet of dim. They click that and just automatically turns it on, and then all you got to do is just tell them to keep track of their glow rod.
Sweet.
Last one I will mention. Actually, I'm going to mention 2 more. I'm sorry. I'm trying to
No
get done.
worries. Yeah, there's so
Um,
many cool mods with this system.
there are. I mean, yes, there are. Token attacher. So you can attach anything to a token, walls, a tile. You can attach anything to the token. When the token moves, it will move with the token. So for an example, one of the things I used this for was an NPC that was large. Um, I put terrain walls around it so that they could see it, but they couldn't see past it. And then I attached those walls to it, so when it moved, the walls would move with it, so they could still not see past where it was.
Nice.
Um, wall height and levels. This is from a author of a module. I think it's Z Ripper or Ripper 93. Um, levels makes it so that you can have different levels on the same scene. They can stack on top of each other, and you can have players in the same scene. They don't have to be on. So if you had an upstairs, for instance, of a map, you could put it in there, and then they would be able to be on different levels, but still be in the same scene. So if they're in combat, it makes it a lot easier just to do that. And then wall height is exactly what it sounds like. You can enable your walls to be at a certain height, so if somebody can fly, and somebody else can't, they can be over the wall. They can see what's happening. The other person is on the ground and they can't. So, you know, like you said, there's so many modules. I don't have time to go through them all.
One question the chat had, Brian wanted to know if when you advance the clock, or like things like lanterns or like time effects, will that like or would they be tied to the clock? Is a good way to say. Like, if you had a lantern that lasts for an hour and you advance it for an hour, would it like be affected?
So yes, again, that's a module.
Okay.
Small time is the module.
Mhm.
Uh, Player visibility, darkness control. Link this scene's darkness level to the current time and small time. So let's go ahead and advance us here. See what happens.
Oh, nice. All right.
So you've got the you got lava here that's on fire, so it's got some light coming off of it at night, and then as it becomes daytime, it starts to brighten up.
Sweet.
So yes, that does work.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you walking us through the modules. Last question I'll ask before we kind of wrap it up. For somebody that's kind of new to Foundry or kind of new to kind of playing around with some of the more advanced functions of it, what would be like your biggest tip? What would be the best thing they should do to kind of get proficient and closer to a level of expertise with the system?
Uh, Two suggestions. One, join the SW5 Foundry Dev Discord so that you can ask questions there. There are a lot of people that will help out, a lot of advanced users that will help you out. They might even do it for you if you ask, and then export it and allow you to download it. But if you're looking to gain knowledge, I again can't say enough to use the YouTube, just to use the YouTube and Google the modules, Google Foundry tutorial. I know that one is from Encounter Library. That's the one that I used when I first started, and the way they explained it, they did very well. So it enabled me to have a base knowledge, and then everything else was just me playing around with it, trying to learn.
Solid. Well, we'll throw try to throw those in the description too for those who are watching this on demand. Yeah, I wanted to thank you for coming out, man. Before we wrap it up, though, I do want to give another shout out to your YouTube, which I'm throwing a link in the chat now as well. I know you're going to be getting your Patreon back up and running too. Give us a little bit about what that's going to be about.
So I just noticed that there was a lack of top down when it comes to Star Wars. So I am going to be doing probably some obscure Star Wars top-down tokens. I've already got a Salvax on there. Some people are probably like, "What is that?" Uh, but that's from the planet Larator, and again, that's an obscure thing that who would have known unless they went and did research on the planet Larator. So I'm going to be looking into having modules like that, or I'm sorry, modules. Here I am top-down tokens based on that. Um, and I've got a, Discord for that as well, for maybe some freebies to give to people. I know I already have some freebies on there, and also some suggestions, maybe feedback, so that I can make it better for everybody.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna throw the link in the chat too. I threw his YouTube in there. Go check that out. But definitely check out the Patreon as well. And then I'm gonna throw in the ones too. If you've never, if you're followed me from my this channel, check out some of the podcasts we've done with Caleb Cakeman on Dungeon Jedi Masters. Talking about the Foundry as well as some other resources there too. I'll throw those in the description link. Yeah, stay tuned because we're going to be doing Invasion's new campaign, Occupation, on completely on Foundry. Hopefully, starting that like June-ish as we finish this campaign up and give you a little bit of time to plan. So you get to see us kind of go through that live and get to see some of the cool Foundry stuff played out in action. And maybe I'll bug Caleb or start getting adventurous myself and do some crazy tile stuff in there as well. But thanks, chat, for hanging out. And thank you really again, Caleb, for coming through. We definitely appreciate learning more about the Foundry system and some of the sweet things it can do.
Not a problem at all. Glad to be here.
Perfect. Well, chat. Thank you guys for coming through. May is our May game of the month is Champions RPG. So come through May 25th. This will be hosted on YouTube as well at 7 p.m. Eastern time to see the champion system, the superhero system live in action. We'll be giving away a free PDF copy of Champions too. So come through for that. But yeah, till next time, folks.